Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Emily, and I am with the Miami University Alumni Association. I'm excited to be joined tonight by Cris Berry, the Columbus chapter president, and Cris Dehlavi, certified mixologist. Tonight, Cris will take us through two different cocktails. If you have any questions throughout, please use the Ask a Question button below the video, and Cris Berry or I will relay them to Cris. Thank you so much to Cris Berry and the Columbus chapter for setting this up and funding this awesome experience. So with that being said, I will turn it over to Cris Berry to give you a little bit more background information on Cris.
Thanks, Emily, and it's good to be with everyone today. Thanks for attending. It sounded like we had a lot of people, I think over 100 RSVP'd, so that's pretty awesome. Want to thank, before we start, Casey and Abby Nolan, two members of the Columbus chapter, who came up with the idea and have done this before, and they had a really great experience. So we were excited to invite Cris. So as Emily mentioned, Cris is a Columbus-based mixologist who's been leading these virtual cocktail making classes from the comfort and safety of our own homes, especially during COVID-19 and as we've all been staying at home more. She's been the head bartender at the 4-Diamond award-winning restaurant M at Miranova since 2002. And for those that aren't Columbus-based, it's probably one of, if not the best restaurant in town. She's also been voted best bartender in Columbus for the past 10 years and is the founder of the Ohio United States Bartenders Guild and is the current vice president of the chapter. So we'll turn it over to Cris, who's going to walk us through our two cocktails this evening, which are the Gimlet and Old Fashioned. Cris, thanks for joining Miami Alum tonight.
Well, thanks for having me. Like you said, I've been doing these for about 6 months, 5-6 months now since COVID began. I'm still unemployed, so I am blessed to be able to do these classes. We're going to go through a Gimlet and an Old Fashioned. Both are really classic cocktails. Both are cocktails that have been around for a long, long time. Hopefully, those of you who are watching are able to make these cocktails with me. If not, please feel free to take notes. Something that you can use in the future for sure. So the first one we'll do is the Gimlet. The Gimlet was originally created in the early 1900s, still very relevant today, very popular cocktail. It has dozens and dozens of variations, which is why I really like to teach this cocktail, because you're gonna learn one recipe, but you're gonna really learn how to make dozens of varieties. So originally the Gimlet was made with gin. I've got Bombay Sapphire here, but there are so many different wonderful gins that you can use in this cocktail. Vodka is another great option. Tequila is also wonderful in this cocktail. And then rum, which is called a daiquiri, same recipe. Cuban cocktail, it was Ernest Hemingway's favorite drink. He wrote about that cocktail in a lot of his books. And there's a variation called a Hemingway daiquiri, specifically because of him. So gin or vodka, rum or tequila would be your spirit for this cocktail. Simple syrup, sugar water, and fresh squeezed lime juice. So in regards to the simple syrup, it's just equal parts of sugar and water. I think a lot of people overthink the process and they think they have to boil and cook it. And truly all you're doing is dissolving equal parts of sugar and water. So this can be done on the stove on low heat, or if you have hot tap water, you can literally do it from your tap, equal parts of hot water and sugar, and just stir it until that sugar is dissolved, and that's it. This will last in the fridge 7 to 10 days. And then the lime juice, can't stress enough to fresh squeeze the juice. I did a little before we started here, but get one of these gadgets if you don't already have one. It makes it a lot easier. If you don't have one, you can certainly squeeze by hand. And that's the basic premise of a gimlet. You will need a jigger, something to measure, because obviously we're measuring this just like as if we were cooking. Mine is 2 ounces on one side, 1 ounce on the other side. Make sure that you know the sizes that your jigger is, because they're not all the same. This one is 2 and 1. I have another one that's 1 ounce, ½ ounce. I've even seen 1.5 ounce, 3/4 ounce. So obviously that's going to make a huge difference if you think you're putting in 2 ounces and you're really putting ½ of an ounce in. So somewhere along the rim of the jigger, it typically says how many ounces are on each side. So take a quick look if you don't already know, so that you make sure you know what you're measuring. You'll need a cocktail shaker. And then we'll go ahead and start making this. So 2 ounces of the spirit, whether that's the gin, vodka, rum, or tequila, 2 ounces goes directly into your shaker. That is for 1 cocktail. So if you are at home with a spouse or a friend or a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever the case may be, and you're making 2 cocktails, you need to double that amount. 2 ounces is for 1 drink. We're not going to add ice till the very end so that we don't water anything down until we are completely ready to shake. So 2 ounces was the spirit, 1 ounce of lime, or I'm sorry, of simple syrup, and also 1 ounce of lime. Again, that is for 1 cocktail. So 1 ounce simple syrup, 1 ounce lime is for 1 cocktail. If you are making it for more than 1 person, double that. And again, just to reiterate, 2 ounces was the spirit, 1 ounce simple syrup, 1 ounce lime. So 2, 1, 1. That's what I want you to remember. Above and beyond all of this is that 2, 1, 1 rule. And as soon as we're done making and pouring this, then I'll kind of explain 2, 1, 1 and all the variations that go along with it. Scoop of ice. Don't overthink the amount of ice. Again, this is something I get asked every time. Well, how much ice? Just a scoop. If you were going to measure that out, it would be like the equivalent of 1 cup or a coffee cup's worth of ice goes right in here. That's it. So I'm going to let everybody catch up. 2 ounces spirit, 1 ounce simple syrup, 1 ounce lime, 1 scoop of ice. And then you want to cover up that shaker. So I have the, professional bartender style, we call it tin on tin shaker. It's 2 pieces. Most of these classes that I've done, I've found that people are doing a cocktail shaker that has 3 parts. It's the big base and then a lid that has a strainer built in and then another little tiny lid on the top. And that's great. That works fine. Don't worry if that's, what the kind that you have. Sometimes you'll see the silver base and then a glass, like a pint glass on top. That works great too. Whatever you've got, put the lid on it. Let it sit on your countertop. Hold the base of it so it doesn't go sliding around. And with the fist of the other hand, just do that. By doing that, I have now sealed this. You can see that the base is connected. And even if it's the 3-part shaker, I want you to give it that little tap on the top. What happens when you start shaking is that it builds pressure and that little top can go flying off. This little top can go flying off. So whether it's people at home or if I'm training working bartenders, I always make sure that they do that. And that will seal this up a little bit. So 1 hand goes on the bottom of your shaker and 1 hand goes on the top. Make sure you're using both hands. And you're going to shake for the count of 10. Don't think about shaking straight side to side. Think about shaking up and down. Count to 10 in your head. And then if you have the 2-part shaker like this, just take that off. If you have the 3-part, you've already got a strainer built in. So all you need to do is take that little top off and you've already got the strainer built in. I've got to use one of these things because I don't have a strainer already in my shaker. This is traditionally a cocktail that is served in a martini glass. You can definitely serve it on ice if that's what you prefer, but it is traditionally served straight up with no ice. If you've got a little potato peeler, these work perfect for taking a little skin off of the lime. These limes, lemons, orange, grapefruit, all citrus has essential oils in the skin. And if you peel just the skin not going down into the juice, but just the skin, and you twist it over the top, you will add a lot of wonderful aroma to the cocktail. It looks pretty because there's this little green guy that's going to get dropped in there, but it adds not only flavor because of the oils, but smell. So when you bring this cocktail up to your face, it smells amazing. I'm going to go ahead and tell you about the variations while you that hopefully made this can enjoy it a little while I'm talking. And then feel free to type in questions in the chat. But the fun thing about this cocktail is the variations. So we talked about the different spirits: gin, vodka, rum, tequila. Obviously, each one of those is going to make for a totally different flavored cocktail. But you can also add herbs. And if you add herbs into your shaker right at the beginning, before you start adding anything else, maybe a handful of mint, and then rum, lime, sugar, 2-1-1, just like we did. Rum, lime juice, simple syrup. That's a mojito. You can also use basil. You can use thyme or rosemary. With any of those spirits, you can get as creative as you want with the herbs and the spirits, and any combination of those. You can also add fruit. So think about maybe at the beginning putting a couple blueberries in here or strawberries, and you can mash them up a little bit. If you've got a muddler, great. If not, you can use pretty much any gadget in your kitchen to mash those up. Same thing, 2-1-1. Any of those spirits is the 2. Lime juice, simple syrup, 2-1-1. Shake it up. Now you have a blueberry gimlet, or you can add the basil and the blueberry, or the watermelon and the strawberry, whatever you want. Cucumber is really good. Jalapeno if you like something spicy. The possibilities are endless as to which ones you want to use and which combination. As long as you always remember the 2-1-1, it will always work, and this cocktail will always come out perfect balance between sweet and sour. Questions?
Yeah, there is.
I don't see any questions yet, but I think Emily's jumping on.
There is one. Emily wants to know: do you ever make the gimlet with rosé lime juice?
Well, Rose's lime juice is the old school product that was originally used, but Rose's lime juice is there's no lime juice in it. It's a fake product. It's citric acid, green food coloring, and that was how, you know, in the 50s they were making it with that stuff called Rose's lime juice. It's a lot of sugar, citric acid, and green food coloring. So no, this is the fresh, really craft cocktail way to do it. I would not personally ever use Rose's lime juice.
Sorry, I read the apostrophe as a little thing over the E at first, so that's why I said Rose. That's all we have so far.
Okay, great. Well, I'll keep rambling then. Like I said, you know, any herb, any fruit, 2-1-1, remember that. There's also other cocktails that follow that same recipe, like the whiskey sour. So instead of lime, you would use lemon. So bourbon, lemon, simple syrup, 2-1-1, same exact cocktail. Classic whiskey sour. Lemon drop martini, usually citrus vodka, lemon juice, simple syrup, also 2-1-1. If you've ever heard of a pisco sour, pisco, lime, simple syrup, 2-1-1. So there's a whole lot of cocktails out there in the world that follow that rule. It's a real specific rule of that perfect balance between the sweet, the tart, and then the spirit. So keep that in mind. You can do a lot of neat stuff with it, no matter, you know, what you've got in your house and what you want to play with. I think there's a lot of really fun things to do with that recipe. The next recipe is the Old Fashioned. The Old Fashioned was created in the 1850s. And, you know, it fascinates me every time I talk about it that it's still relevant today as much as it was in 1850. I mean, it's incredible to think of a cocktail that was created, you know, almost 200 years ago and is still so popular. I would say that the Old Fashioned is probably in the top 3 most requested cocktails, and that's amazing. It's very easy to make, and I think that a lot of people think that this is a lot more in-depth than it actually is. There's only a few ingredients. I'm going to show you the original Old Fashioned, the one that was written about in 1850, and then I'll tell you about how it's kind of evolved and how different places around the US will make it a little bit different. But this is the original, and if you are a bourbon lover, this is one that you will definitely enjoy. Sugar. I have sugar cubes, but you can use sugar cubes or you can use regular table sugar. I'm talking about the traditional white sugar and just a teaspoon. So you don't have to go get the fancy measuring spoons out. Just the small spoon that's in your silverware drawer is all you need to use. So 1 spoon of sugar. I'm going to use these little cubes, and I'm going to put 3 in because they're the little itty bitty ones. An orange peel. So much like we did with the lime skin, we're going to peel just a piece of peel off this orange. You don't have to use that peeler. A knife is better with an orange because the skin of an orange is so thick. And so you can use a knife, and you're just really going like this. This is probably 2 inches long. And if you look, you can see that I did not actually go down into the juice of this orange. It's just the peel. And that goes right into that glass too. We're using a short glass. Just a little short glass, whatever you would put spirit on the rocks or a spirit in a mix, like a vodka tonic or something like that. So whatever your short glass is in your house. And then 3 dashes of Angostura bitters. These are the classic bitters. These are literally in every bar, whether it's the dive bar or the craft cocktail bar. Everybody's got this one because this one is in so many very basic cocktails. This has the flavor of cinnamon, clove, nutmeg. So all those baking spices, especially now that we're getting into fall, those are the flavors and smells that you expect and kind of crave. This has a little tiny top on it so that you aren't pouring it out. It's like it comes out in dashes. So 3 dashes. Don't think of this as drops, but think of this as dashes, okay? What we're doing is we are creating a little syrup in the bottom of this glass. We now have sugar, we have the orange peel, and we have the Angostura bitters. And I'm going to use this muddler. If you've got one, awesome. If you don't, I've seen everything you can think of being used during COVID and these virtual classes for people to muddle this up. I had one guy using the handle of an ice cream scoop, worked great. So whatever you got, you just want to get in there and crush up the sugar. Keep in mind that as you're crushing this up, that orange peel is releasing all of those essential oils. So you're making a syrup of orange oil, bitters, and sugar. Once you do that, smell it. It smells amazing. This actually smells like the candle that I just bought the other day to make my house smell like fall because it's crispy and cool outside here in Ohio. And then 2 ounces of whiskey. Traditionally, this is bourbon. Whatever bourbon you love is going to work great. I'm using the Old Forester 100, which is delicious. You know, there are so many bourbons out there. Truly, it's what you want to use. This is a very spirit-forward cocktail, so you are really going to taste that bourbon. So use one that you love. 2 ounces goes right in. And then ice. That's it. I don't like to fill the glass with ice because I don't want to water this down a lot. I really like the taste of whiskey, so 4 or 5 cubes maybe. I like to stir this up a little bit. I've got this big, long, fancy spoon, but of course you can use whatever spoon you've got. And that's an old fashioned. It's very simple. In regards, though, to variations, depending on where you go in the US or even where you go in your own city and which bartender is making it, sometimes you'll see people use an orange slice. Instead of that peel, they'll actually slice and you'll get some of the juice of the orange. I think that's delicious too. Sometimes you'll see bartenders muddling a cherry in it, like a Luxardo cherry or, you know, a really nice cherry. Try and stay away from the red ones. But, you know, any of those work. And those are also really nice options with that muddled fruit. Wisconsin is famous for the brandy old fashioned. They use brandy instead of bourbon. I've had regulars over the years who use Canadian whiskey. I love an old fashioned with aged rum or aged tequila. If you are a tequila or rum fan, I highly encourage you to make this very cocktail the exactly way we did with your favorite aged tequila or your favorite aged rum. It's lovely. There's a lot of, you know, fun options with this. You can also switch out the bitters. These are the best, I think, but orange bitters are really nice. Black walnut. Fee Brothers makes a cinnamon bitters. There's a whole lot of options that you can use to kind of play around with changing this up. I've also muddled fresh peaches or even canned peaches into an old fashioned before. Peaches and bourbon just work perfectly. I see some questions here.
Yeah, we have quite a few. I can add them to the screen. So Robert says he muddled cherry syrup with sugar and bitters. Is that okay?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, if you like it a little sweeter, then by all means, adding a little bit of that cherry syrup is fine. Definitely.
Is there anything
to substitute for bitters? I mean, not really. The thing about bitters is it's adding bitterness, but the bitterness counteracts with the sweetness and all the other flavors and it rounds it all out. The only thing I would say that you could use in place of would be an Amaro. But if you don't have bitters, you probably don't have an Amaro in your bar supplies. Any suggestions for choosing fruit for your cocktail? I don't know if you're referring to the Gimlet or the Old Fashioned. I mean, there's not a whole lot of things I would add to an Old Fashioned in regards to fruit. Like I said, the peaches work really great, maybe apricot or something like that. I mean, I wouldn't start mixing light, refreshing things like watermelon because I don't think it would work with an Old Fashioned with the bourbon. But with the Gimlet, I mean, sky's the limit. I have done just about every fruit you can think of in a Gimlet, and they all work. The only thing that I would say to you once you start adding fruit to your Gimlet is taste the fruit first, see how sweet it is. You know, we've all had a really ripe strawberry and it's like candy, it's so sweet. And then sometimes you get a strawberry that's kind of hard and not that flavorful. If you are sensitive to sugar or maybe you don't want your drink to be overly sweet, taste that fruit first. And if it's a really ripe watermelon or really ripe strawberry, something that's really sweet, pull back a tiny bit on your 1 ounce simple syrup, maybe 3/4 of an ounce. If you're really sensitive to sugar, maybe even pull that back to 1/2 ounce. It's totally up to you. Use that 2-1-1 as a real basic formula and then adjust it according to your personal palate. So simple syrup is sugar water, equal parts. All you're looking to do is dissolve that sugar. So you don't have to boil it. In fact, once you start boiling it, you start to change the flavor of the sugar. You almost get that like burned sugar kind of flavor. So I always do equal parts, exactly the same amount. So cup of sugar, cup of water, or if you're making a lot, 3 cups, whatever the case may be. I put it on the stove. I have an electric stove, so like low to medium, and just stir until that sugar's dissolved. It only takes a few minutes. You can remove it from the heat once the sugar's dissolved, put it into whatever sort of container, and keep it in the fridge for 7 to 10 days.
Laura said they missed how much sugar that they should use for the old fashioned. Can you repeat that again really quick?
I didn't hear the first part of what you said, Emily. I'm sorry.
How much sugar should you use for the old fashioned? They said they missed that.
A teaspoon, just a teaspoon. So whatever your small, this is long, but just, a small spoon of sugar goes into the glass. If you've got sugar cubes, if they're the little tiny ones, 2 to 3, depending on what you like. If they're bigger sugar cubes, 1 to 2. It all depends on your sweetness level, what you like. And keep in mind too, that you don't have to use white table sugar. You can use sugar in the raw, which I love, demerara. You could even use brown sugar. Brown sugar is going to give you that real mapley, caramely flavor. As we head into fall, winter, that makes this drink feel more fall, winter than a summer drink as well. So feel free to play around with that in the old fashioned, as well as when you're making simple syrups, you can use other sugars. You don't have to use white sugar.
And Kelly wants to know, when using tequila or rum, do you use the same amount that you do as whiskey? Or the bourbon?
For the old fashioned, yes, 2 ounces. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And
yes.
we have a lot of questions coming in. Do you want to keep going with questions? Are you fine with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, please do.
I'll
Love
keep
it.
putting them along the bottom of the screen then, so you can read them.
Yeah, that's great. Please. What's one drink that I think should be more popular? Oh my gosh. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think popularity depends on the place you go to order the drinks. You go into a craft cocktail bar, they always have a fancy menu, so they're making their own fancy stuff. I think the Manhattan, the Old Fashioned, the Gimlet, the Negroni, those are all the classics that are really popular, especially in the kind of bar that would make those. What's my opinion on torching the orange peel with a lighter? I think it looks really cool. I think that, especially behind the bar, it makes me look cool and it makes people go, ooh, wow. And it does add flavor. The essential oils in these fruits is flammable. So if I take that peel and kind of bend it so I'm spraying that oil over a flame, it will torch up. And what it does is it makes this little cool flame, but it also smokes that skin of the orange. So it adds a smoky flavor. I think it's a great idea if that is the flavor that you're looking to put into your drink. Should the sugar in the old fashioned be completely dissolved? No, not really. And that's the reason we use sugar in the old fashioned instead of simple syrup, is we want that grittiness to help kind of grind up the orange peel. It's impossible for it to fully be dissolved because it's not being added to anything hot, but getting a good muddle will get it ground up quite a bit. But, most people who enjoy old fashions, they enjoy that kind of last sip of it where you get all that sugar, bitters, and orange flavor. What is my favorite bourbon? That's tough. I love Blanton's, but you can hardly find it. I love, for an everyday bourbon, I love Maker's Mark. Always have loved it. I'm kind of on an Elijah Craig single batch kick right now. I think it's delicious. And I actually just recently started drinking Rabbit Hole, which is a fairly new distillery in Kentucky, and it is really, really tasty. I highly encourage you to go buy a bottle of Rabbit Hole if you have not already. The question is, how long is a bottle of bitters good for? Indefinite. It is high proof alcohol is the base. If you look at your bottle of Angostura, I think it's like 89 proof. It's actually higher proof than that gin. It is indefinite. It will last on the shelf in your house forever and ever and ever. So the question is why some drinks are shaken, some are stirred, and that's an awesome and perfect question. You stir drinks that are only spirits. So think about a Manhattan, whiskey, vermouth, and bitters. Think about a martini, gin, dry vermouth, a Negroni, gin, Campari, sweet vermouth. So any cocktail that is all booze, all spirits, we stir. The reason is because we just want to get that cold. A cocktail with citrus, cream, egg whites, syrup of any sort, you want to shake because you actually want to add a bit of dilution to it. That's how you get kind of that frothiness in certain shaken cocktails. And you want to add a little bit of water, which is what happens when you shake with ice. You're breaking up that ice and you're actually diluting the drink just a bit. And that's the logic. Any suggestions to use some of your Saint Germain? Sure, I love Saint Germain. In your gimlet, use it in place of the simple syrup. So 2-1-1, 2 parts gin, 1 part Saint Germain, 1 part lime. Amazing. Think of your Saint Germain as the sweetening element in a lot of drinks. I also really enjoy Saint Germain and champagne. 4 parts of the champagne, 2 parts of Saint Germain, and then it's going to need a little bit of citrus, like a little squeeze of lemon, just to balance it out. Otherwise, it's going to be all sweet. But yeah, Saint Germain is, for us in the business, we think of Saint Germain as like bartender's butter. It literally goes with any spirit. It goes with everything. You name it. Can you use a rye whiskey? If so, should you alter the rest of the ingredients for an old fashioned? No, definitely don't alter. Rye whiskey is great. Rye whiskey is just going to be a little bit spicier, not spicy like hot like jalapeno, but spicy like savory. And I'm a huge fan of rye as well. So honestly, same exact recipe. Use the rye. It's just going to change the end result. Just like if you were using Knob Creek instead of Bullet, totally different results ultimately. What's the strangest cocktail I've made? Oh my gosh. I used to do competitions and so like I would do these competitions where they were secret ingredient, kind of like Chopped on the Food Network. And I always got just crazy ingredients. Mushrooms, avocado, peanut butter and cucumber, you name it, I have made it. And yeah, usually, I mean, most every time I was able to fiddle around with ingredients and make them work. Once you understand the concept of each one of the spirits and the ingredients, you're able to make them work and balance. It's really a lot like cooking. And if any of you are good cooks out there, you know how to fiddle around with things and make them work. We already answered that one. What gins do I recommend with different botanicals? Well, if you like the juniper forward gins, then you're gonna want to go with Bombay Sapphire, Beefeater, Tanqueray. If you like a gin that's a little bit citrusy, Tanqueray 10 is really nice. Watershed here locally makes a really citrusy gin. You gotta really like the citrus to enjoy that one, but some people really love it. For a complex really beautiful one. I love Botanist. It's probably my favorite gin on the market. And Botanist has a lot of botanicals, and it's really, really great. And it's got juniper, all gins do, but it's light on the juniper and heavy on all the other botanicals. My favorite cocktail to make and my favorite cocktail to drink. I really love making cocktails in general. I mean, I just love the technique of making cocktails. So it's hard to say what I would love as far as like my favorite to make. I love shaking. Shaking is fun. I love the art of stirring. You didn't really get to see me do it, but there's a real art to like the perfect stir. So any of those are my favorite. I mean, I love them all. Favorite to drink. In the summer, I really like a gimlet or something along those lines, something light, citrusy, and refreshing. As we head into colder weather, I definitely lean more towards the dark and bitter cocktails like the Negroni or the Manhattan Boulevardier, which is a Negroni made with bourbon instead of gin. When would you use a blender instead of a shaker? Never, ever. I'm not a fan of blender drinks. You know, once you start to crush up a whole lot of ice, you are watering it down so much. And that's why if you ever have a frozen like margarita, for instance, it's either really bland or it's really sweet, because when you add that much ice to the normal recipe, you're just watering it down. So a lot of bartenders overcompensate with a lot more sugary stuff, and then it turns out completely unbalanced. I don't like to do frozen drinks. No, you could flash blend real quick where you're not blending and crushing ice, and a quick flash blend would work just like the shaking. So I guess depending on how fancy your blender is. So the question is, you know, skinny cocktails or sugar substitute, stevia. I've messed around with stevia a little bit. It's the only one that I would encourage you to use in place of sugar. I just feel like, you know, the sweet and lows and equals of the world are not any better for you. Stevia is okay, but it doesn't mix as well as, it doesn't blend as well, and it doesn't dissolve as well as sugar. And it also tends to be a little bit sweeter. So you can't use that 2-1-1 rule. If you're making a stevia syrup, you almost have to go 2-1/2 and then play around with it. There's other sugar substitute like agave nectar. It's a little bit better on the glycemic index, but still sweet. It's still sugary. What I would encourage people to do is just pull back on the amount. I cut sugar out of my life about 2 years ago, and so I never eat it, but I do enjoy it in cocktails. I just pull back on that amount for me personally. So instead of 2-1-1, it would be 2-1/2. And instead of a spoon of sugar in this old fashioned, it would be like half a spoon. And for me, that I think still keeps the integrity of the cocktail.
Awesome. We have one more question for tonight, and that is, what is your favorite brand of gin and your favorite brand of tequila?
The world of gin, there are, you know, so many, because gin is such a big category. But if I had to pick one brand of gin, like Desert Island, I get to take one with me, it would be Botanist. And my favorite tequila for mixing, Herradura Silver. For sipping, Don Julio 1942. I would not mix the Don Julio 1942. It's really expensive, and it's got this wonderful vanilla flavor. It's perfect on its own for sipping.
Okay, one more quick one. What is your favorite recipe for a Manhattan?
My favorite recipe is really the classic, which would be 2 parts of the whiskey, whether it's bourbon or rye, your choice. 1 part sweet vermouth, so 2 ounces, 1 ounce. And then couple heavy dashes of Angostura bitters, always stirred because it's all alcohol, and then served straight up. Manhattan is one that you can get real creative with bitters. Black walnut, toasted almond, orange. There's just an endless option for that, and it will really change your Manhattan quite a bit.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cris. I know I learned a lot tonight, so I'm sure that everybody else did as well. We had a lot of great comments saying thank you so much for doing this. Ed said, just wanted to let you know you are missed by everyone at Miranova. So everybody really had a great time tonight. So thank you.
I miss everybody at Miranova too, and I don't know who Ed is, but thank you. Thank you for saying that, because I am just heartbroken that we're not reopened yet.
Do you have a timeline or anything of when they might reopen, or no? Not at this point.
No, nothing.
I know this has been hard for a lot of people. But thank you for doing this. I had a great time. I'm sure everybody else did as well.
My pleasure, of course.
Rob says you really know your stuff.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank you again to Cris Berry and the Columbus chapter for organizing and funding this fantastic event. I hope you all had a great time tonight and learned something new. We hope that you will join us for our in-person chapter events in the future, and also visit www.miamialum.org to check out other events happening in the near future. So thank you again, everybody. I hope you have a great evening. As always,